when your point of differentiation of an airline is we give you a full-size meal tray, but we don't give you a meal to put on it, by the way, that's kind of sad.
This is the Time on Wing podcast. Welcome back. I'm Courtney Miller with Visual Approach Analytics. With me, as always, Garrick Deschavon of Collateral Verifications. Garrick, who are we talking to today?
Well, good afternoon, Courtney. Since this will probably not be published before then, I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays, because this might actually come out during the holidays. So from all of us at, which is really just Courtney and I, happy holidays. We hope you enjoy them.
And by holidays, he means the 4th of July.
Well,
probably get it published before then.
Yeah, happy 2024 holidays. All of them. So today we have Henry Harteveldt, which we're very excited to talk to him about. He knows a thing or two about kind of traveling and what the consumers potentially expect in the travel industry, and which is a little bit different from some of the things that we've talked about, but should be really, really interesting. He's got a great background. So Henry is currently president and travel industry analyst for Atmosphere Research Group. He has also been VP and principal analyst, head of global travel industry research for Forrester Research. He's also had a position as marketing director for Internet Travel Network / Get There. He's worked for CKS Partners as an account director, been head of global marketing for the Fairmont Hotel Management Company, been a marketing director at Trump Shuttle, which I think that's pretty cool. He's also been a manager in marketing and planning for Continental Airlines. He's been a global advertising manager for Trans World Airlines, and he has a bachelor's degree in marketing from it's Tulane University School of Business. Henry, we're definitely very excited to talk to you today, and this is your Time on Wing.
Just a quick intermission before we continue with the show. We do get a lot of questions about how our listeners can support the show, and frankly, the easiest way is to continue the spirit of the show, which is just to reach out to us at conferences. But we also run businesses as well, and you can support us by supporting a lot of the work that we do. You can support the work that I do through Visual Approach by visiting visualapproach.io, where we produce a lot of research and analysis, a lot of data visualizations.
From my side, obviously, I focus more on the metals, so anything that's aircraft related, if you're looking for valuations, whether it's on aircraft engines, I'm happy to help with any of those types of projects. So we appreciate certainly the opportunities to work with all of you, and we certainly also appreciate just the fact that people are willing to listen to what we have to say and enjoy kind of our thoughts and takes on what we think is a fascinating industry. So thank you.
Okay, back to the show.
Henry, thank you very much for being on the show today. Obviously, we're very excited to speak with you, so thank you for taking the time. One of the things that, if you've listened to some of the past forecasts, the question that I always ask at the beginning is we love to hear kind of where people got their passion in aviation from, where it came from, where you started. And so we'd love to hear it from you.
The truth is, I don't know where it came from. I've just always had this passion. Neither of my parents had anything to do with the airline business or travel more broadly. My dad worked in fine jewelry. He had a jewelry company. My mom was a stay-at-home mom when I was younger, and then she worked as a stockbroker amongst other jobs. And, as my dad said, my first word wasn't mama or dada, but Boeing. It's just, I've just always been fascinated by airplanes. My dad told the story that when I was very young, people had given me teddy bears and things like that, the kinds of gifts you normally give like a baby or a toddler, soft, cuddly things that won't harm them. And apparently someone had given my dad a Boeing 707 display model, small one, and I took it and never let go of it. And I actually asked my mother later, you didn't think there was anything wrong with letting your young child keep something with very sharp edges and pointy things? And she said, well, here you are. So I guess it turned out okay.
Yeah,
That's
the
great.
pointy 707 is nothing compared to the set of knives that were sitting right next to it, right?
Yeah, well, I guess I was smart enough to know, what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, well, that's it's funny. It's funny how everybody kind of gets the. I mean, I was kind of the same way. Like, it's not like I grew up and I was like, oh my god, airplanes, that's great. Or it just kind of grew, and you just kind of jump into it, and you get a So was your first job within the airline industry, or is that how kind of what?
Well,
How did
no,
you kind of go down that path?
I grew up in New York, and I was lucky. I could, when I was old enough, I would go to the airline ticket offices, collect the timetables. I'd build model planes, build model airports with my Legos for those model planes, all of that. My first paying job after college. Well, actually, no. Take you back. During high school, I worked at a travel agency after school, and
Okay.
I actually taught myself how to type on a Sabre set. But this was back in the day of paper airplane tickets. And so they would save all the tickets for the kid to write. And I would always go home with red ink stained fingers and everything. But, I learned a great deal back then. And this was in the days of, official airline guides and all of that. My first paying job was working at the ad agency for American Airlines on the account. From there, working at American and then TWA, Continental, Trump Shuttle, and so on. So it's a career focused on the marketing and planning side. When I worked on the airlines, and then as an analyst, I've looked at commercial topics and tech topics.
And so started at American, then TWA?
Yep, TWA.
I mean, American was kind of the only name in that list that still. Not that I'm making any suggestions that it's because of you, Henry. You're a Continental.
If only the marketing had been better.
Yeah.
It's been so nice talking to you. Thank you for inviting me to join us.
Shortest podcast ever.
No. Look, I'm going to tell you, you look at this, and I was working at American when we were competing against Braniff, and DFW was one of the markets I was responsible for. Now, my mother was from Dallas. I grew up flying Braniff back and forth from New York to Texas and so on, along with American. But Braniff was always my favorite airline growing up. The brightly colored planes and, all the glamour that Braniff had, the Pucci uniforms, the Alexander Calder jets, all of that. I remember when Braniff shut down, and one reason why I still keep a Braniff model on my desk, it's a cautionary tale about what happens when you don't invest in the right things the right way. And we are lucky in the U.S. in that we use bankruptcy as a reset tool as opposed to punishment in other countries where businesses have to shut down. But I prefer to think of it that, I helped make TWA so great that years later, American wanted to buy it. And Continental was successful, but you're right. Every major U.S. airline except for Southwest and Alaska, I think, have gone through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But in fairness, Continental does live on with they took the United branding, but the Continental ownership, I think, was the outstanding ownership in that merger, right? Am I wrong?
Continental acquired United, but they kept the United name. That was the right decision. So we look at the landscape, and as we record this, JetBlue and Spirit are proposing to merge, and Alaska just announced its intention to acquire Hawaiian. Back in business school, I wrote a report, for my marketing class, a combination for marketing and economics, about how the U.S. airline industry would need to consolidate in the wake of deregulation, that we couldn't support 20 or whatever airlines there were at the time, and that the number would, diminish to 10 or less, because airlines are an industry that demands scale and scope. We don't want to connect between two airlines if we can avoid it. We understand we may have to connect, but if you can take the same airline all the way through or most of the way through, it's obviously better.
So the marketing aspects of the airlines, in the time when you were working with those carriers, more at the beginning of your career, because I've never thought about this, but you're kind of the most qualified person to answer. How has this fundamentally changed, just on the marketing side?
Well, so the interesting thing is when I began working, deregulation had already occurred, but it was still the early years of a deregulated industry. Brand mattered, quality mattered. The loyalty programs, Advantage, Mileage Plus, et cetera, were new, but they were very much about loyalty. There was still a lot of pride in product. Airlines wanted to be seen as being, if not the best, certainly better. And what has changed is the consumer's been very clear in the decades since deregulation that we would prefer to spend the least amount possible for a trip, and we are willing to trade off a lot of niceties in order to save money. And what's interesting is when I began working in marketing was product and brand, advertising, frequent flyer, all of that, sales promotion. Sometimes PR was part of the group, sometimes not. Now marketing is the make it pretty department. Mm-hmm. And what's noteworthy is American Airlines doesn't even have a marketing department anymore.
They don't have a sales department either, Henry. Not anymore.
Right. They've gotten rid of sales, and that's part of a different corporate strategy. But you don't have marketing departments to speak of. And when you compare how airlines view marketing versus, say, packaged good companies, it's night and day. And so I'm lucky. When I was coming into this industry and starting my career, I got to work on product. I got to work on what should the airport experience be, the onboard experience be. We didn't have websites back then, but ticketing offices and reservations and things like that. Even if we didn't oversee those, we worked with them to make sure that the customer was being served well and that the employee was equipped with the tools needed to do their job as well.
The term marketing, I'm really interested just in some work that I'm doing now in just all the different meanings that the word marketing can take. So for instance, you were talking about the original days at your original days at American Airlines, marketing being the product, the whole customer experience. On the OEM side, I was part of a marketing group, but we were the business analysts. Other groups, they look at marketing as the top of the sales funnel only that provides the sales team leads. And I think if I'm understanding you correctly, you're kind of talking about marketing today on the airline side more as limited to advertising.
Right. Look, B2C, business to consumer marketing is different than business to business or B2B marketing. And so, Courtney, you're right. When you say that some companies view marketing as the top of the funnel, that's very true in a lot of businesses, especially B2B. Where like a software company views marketing as what should the brand name be and the look and feel and things like that. But then you've got product marketing people, you've got sales marketing people, you've got a lot of different folks in a lot of different roles with marketing in their titles. On the airline side now, loyalty marketing is usually a different group, and the loyalty program is focused on credit card and spending, not loyalty. The customer experience group looks at cabin design, possibly website design, although the digital team may take that on. Reservations, of course, has its own function. Onboard is its own group. Airport customer service is its own group, and so on. So that leaves marketing basically with advertising, sales promotion, collateral, things like that. That's why I call it the make it pretty department. And frankly, I think the what's sad is that there are no chief marketing officers at two of the three largest airlines, American and United. They don't have chief marketing officers.
And why do you think that? Do they just outsource that to others, or do they just feel that it's not something
they just don't think it matters? It's just not something that is important to them. They view loyalty as a core way to engage customers, and that's fine. And United has invested a lot in its technology, and they view technology as being critical to enabling a really good passenger experience. And they're not wrong with that. But technology is not everything. In a world where now you've got social media and countless digital platforms, the role of advertising and the role of marketing is very, very different compared to, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where media and communications were very, very different. I think what's noteworthy is how this has changed. And look, I've worked for some CEOs who, were very strongly involved in marketing earlier in my career when I was on the airline side. It certainly was the case when I ran marketing for Fairmont Hotels and Resorts, which is how I ended up in San Francisco. And I've worked at a brand agency where we would work with marketing leaders across a variety of companies. And one of the clients we had was United Airlines. And at the time, they were very marketing focused. And as an analyst, I've worked with more than 50 different airlines around the world. And what's consistent is the U.S. airlines are the least engaged with marketing. They care, they pay the least amount of attention. They dedicate the least amount of money to it compared to non-U.S. airlines, whether, by the way, they are a network or so-called full service carrier or a budget airline or ULCC.
Okay, so there are a few things I want to dive into. I don't want to leave the American Braniff. Well, you weren't at Braniff, but you competed against Braniff, Continental, Trump, that whole side of the 80s. But you mentioned kind of the non-US airlines that I don't even like the term marketing. Really, kind of the overall brand, the overall feel, the overall kind of customer experience maybe is a better example. Like, do you have, like, today, where do you see as kind of the leaders in that space?
Well, you're going to think this is wild, but I think some of the leaders in the customer experience, in quotes, are some of the ULCCs, because they're so focused on telling people, here's what you get, here's what you don't get. But they view their brands just as seriously as the people do, let's say, at Nike or Apple. They're very concerned about making sure their brands are relevant and stand for what they want them to represent, what they want them to represent. But there are also airlines like Etihad, Air France, Cathay Pacific, Qantas that obsess about details. Nose to tail, by the way. It's not like they're saying, okay, we only are going to care as far back as business class or premium economy, and then, we don't care what happens. These folks do care. Now, obviously, they're going to pay attention to the people who pay more money and where they derive more profits. But, they want everyone to be able to use their digital tools. They want everyone to be treated, in a welcome manner. These, airlines want people to feel they're getting good value for money paid. And it's fascinating when you look at airlines that have a strong design focus, for example, and they will obsess about even things like pillows or seat design or things like that. It's not just seats and screens. They really look at this, and it's great to see it. And then the budget airlines are saying, look, we are not promising people luxury, but we do want people to have a pleasant journey. We do want them to find value. We do want to make sure that they are aware of what we have to offer, and they find those things that they like, value, and can afford, and we make it easy for them to buy. The whole airline industry right now is in a transition to becoming retailers, and it's fascinating to watch this.
Absolutely. I I'm with you 100% on the LCCs, right? It's that value, right? I mean, we think of value as paying less, but there's the whole other side of the ledger.
Right. Look,
And the
Delta
ULCCs.
was. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I would say Delta would tell you, look, part of the value we bring is punctuality and reliability.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair because at their core, and this is something that became very clear to me, especially at Trump Shuttle, airlines are time management tools. We're not, okay, maybe we will get on an airplane because we want to be on the airplane, but the 99% of the rest of the world, we're taking an airplane because it is the fastest, safest way to get from A to B.
Yeah, and I think now is probably the appropriate time to point out, Henry, that Garrick has never been to Atlanta Airport.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, right? Yeah, I don't know how it's possible. He's been in this industry, how long, Garrick? 75, 80 years? Is that right?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah.
I look great for my age.
This is like the running
No,
joke.
I'm a Delta Platinum.
He's Delta, yeah.
But I've never been through Atlanta. I've never.
Garrett, that is like you are bending time and space. There is a unique time-space warp out there, and you're in it if you have never been to Atlanta and you are a Delta Platinum Delta flyer.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's the weirdest thing. I know, and I'm trying to think. I mean, when I look back through the travel that I do during the year, which I don't travel a ton, right? But I travel enough. I mean, I usually go to the same places, and usually it's just a direct flight, right? So for me, there's no reason, unless I need to go to Atlanta, which I have not had the need to go yet. There's no reason for me to go through.
There's no reason to go to Atlanta. It's called the Delta Flight Museum, dude.
Come on, Garrick.
And then there's the Porsche place. You can test drive a Porsche right next door.
Right, just outside the door, right outside.
Yeah. So there's two reasons why I should try to go, but you know what? I've made it
The home of
my life's
Chick-fil-A.
goal not to go through there now because everybody keeps telling me I need to go.
Yeah, so now it's this running joke where I think there was some trip recently that it was to Miami or something to Miami, and like there was a flight through Atlanta, but you avoided it.
Because it wasn't done on purpose. It's not like I was like, oh, you know what, I'm never going to go through Atlanta.
Well, it's on purpose now.
Like at some point, somebody said, you've never been through Atlanta and you're a Delta? Like yeah, I've never gone through it. But anyway.
So that was almost the first death of this podcast because there's no way that I could continue after that, Henry. But Garrick begged and pleaded and fine, I let him back on. But I do. So, okay. American, your time there, what did you take away from that experience? Or, I mean, quite literally, like, was there any specific projects that would be completely mind-blowing to us today?
Well, I mean, this is so long ago. What I would say is that when I worked at the ad agency, I've helped make the case to get American back into network TV. We helped American get ready. I helped with the naming of International Flagship Service when they took over the DFW London flight after Braniff shut down. American always has been a very data focused, very numbers focused airline. And when you think of advertising, you think of the creative aspects of it. Creating the print ads or the TV commercials or radio commercials, which is what, were the mainstays at the time, the jingle, all of that. But one thing you had to do is create the business case for your budget. How much budget should you have? And you couldn't say, well, we had X percent of budget last year, therefore we should keep X percent this year. We had to work with network planning. How much are we planning to grow or not grow? What new markets are we looking at? A huge amount of the budget was dedicated to what we called retail advertising, price advertising. So we tried to figure out ways to make that more efficient. We basically had advertising in a box, if you will, so that if someone started a price war and we had to match, we were ready to go quickly. But American was a well-oiled machine. It was growing leaps and bounds. DFW and Chicago at the time were the two primary hubs. The Caribbean was the primary leisure area destination for American at the time, but they were starting long haul, London, and then they added Rio. It was interesting to watch American transform from a primarily North American focused airline to one that was starting to grow into an airline with long haul routes. And in a way, that's what made it appealing for me to go to TWA. Because when TWA called, one, it was get me back home to New York. I like Dallas, still do, but I'm from New York. And two, go to work for an airline that was much more global, much more international. And at TWA, I ended up working on product, including new business class seats for the 747s, new ad campaign, the Leading the Way campaign, working for an airline that continued to grow. We went back into India. We reopened Hawaii, which of course is domestic, but it's, a very unique destination and so on. So I was there on an upswing at TWA, but I was also there during a really tumultuous time. The hijacking of Flight 847, the battle between Texas Air and Frank Lorenzo and Carl Icahn for control of the company, and a flight attendant strike. And meanwhile, I'm trying to, advertising is out there trying to paint the best possible picture. And, there are all these other things going on that, make it really difficult to do your job.
Yeah. Which I guess that's one aspect of marketing that we can maybe touch on a little bit, right? Because there's one thing that's there to talk about. Here are the great things that we're doing. Here's why you should be a customer. But then how do you handle when there is some kind of an event or something that's going on that it makes the news, and now you're still, like you say, trying to do your job, but how do you tiptoe around that to not make it seem like it doesn't exist?
I learned more about crisis management at TWA than anywhere else because so much was happening. And granted, PR, or now corporate communications, often takes the lead in managing that. But certainly we had to be out there sensitive to what was going on. So, for example, when 847 was hijacked, we pulled all of our advertising, of course. We went dark. But we had to go out there and figure out, would people still want to fly with TWA? Would there be any lingering concerns about safety, security, etc., with us? And that was part of the work that our group did. We were also the underdog airline. But I will tell you, it was a great time, although it had some really funny moments. I remember one of my first meetings at TWA, going into my boss told me as we're walking in, you present the campaign. And I'd only been on the job for a few weeks. And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. He said, you know enough to present it. And so I walked in and I did the dog and pony, showed people the ads. And this had people from reservations, pricing and revenue management, scheduling, and a few other sales, and a few other departments. And there was this one guy who would shake his head and mutter every so often, oh, Howard wouldn't like this. Oh, I don't think Howard would approve that. And finally, I said to him, look, I know I'm new. I've looked at the org chart, but maybe I missed something. Who's this Howard guy? Because it sounds like we need to reach out to him and get his approval on this. And all the heads turned back to me and it's like, okay, how's this kid going to handle it? Because they knew it was coming. And he said, well, Howard Hughes. And I said, Howard Hughes is dead. Howard Hughes is dead, and we fly jets now.
Wow.
And that kind of became a saying within certain areas when we thought we were just not getting with the program enough. Howard Hughes is dead, and we fly jets now. Continental was really interesting because there it was a combination of marketing and planning. And at Continental, I went through the mega mergers with Frontier, New York Air, People Express, working to help find the market that became Cleveland, open the new hub there. And we were solidly in worst place. Gordon Bethune's book, From Worst to First. Hello, I was there when we were worst. And it got so bad, I actually had my own business cards printed up that said Henry Harteveldt, marketing manager, but no company identification. I paid for these myself because anytime you'd meet someone and tell them you work for Continental, all they would do is complain. And nobody wants to hear their employer be the source of that.
Courtney, I think that's a great idea for you.
Already done. It's already been done, Garrick. Courtney Miller, podcast host.
That's incredible. By the way,
And Continental at the time, I mean, oh, how things have changed. But they went through 2 bankruptcies, right?
I was there after the first bankruptcy, and there were certainly a lot of things Continental Airlines did well, but we certainly were challenged in terms of budget. We didn't invest enough to standardize the fleet following the acquisitions of Frontier and People Express. So there were a lot of operational complications. We didn't have enough. We didn't spend enough on technology. There are just a lot of things that happen, and it was well chronicled in business publications, news, and elsewhere. At the same time, we were very scrappy, and we did some very clever promotions, and I got to work on combining the frequent flyer programs. We changed the name from Travel Bank to One Pass. We introduced the first ever airline co-branded credit card.
Oh, wow.
We didn't do the greatest job with it. American was much more successful. But, there were a lot of things that I got to work on while I was there that were great from the standpoint of being a marketing guy.
Why? So the Fairmont hotels. So you left aviation you left airborne real estate for nightly real estate.
Right.
What was that like? Well, first of all, why?
Well, okay. So I left Continental to go to work for Trump Shuttle, which was an interesting 2-year time frame. And, you get to rebrand an operating business. It's basically starting something new, even though it's operating. But it became very clear that the original strategy we had, using the Eastern Air Shuttle as the foundation for what would become a larger airline, both through organic growth and potential acquisition, was not going to play out the way anyone had wanted. And I got recruited by Fairmont to join them, in part because they liked the experience I had working in loyalty and brand and things like that, but also because Fairmont was in the Advantage Gold portfolio. And at the time, Advantage only had regular Advantage and Gold. There was no Platinum, let alone Executive Platinum, Concierge Key, or any of the things we know now. What?
Gold was the highest.
Gold was the highest.
They hand gold out like it's candy now.
Well, back then, gold was much smaller. But,
Inflation.
The relationship with American was very important to Fairmont because these were hand-selected companies. And we benefited from it greatly because we had hotels in Dallas, Chicago, and New Orleans, which were 3 big cities for American, and San Francisco, where at the time they still had a sizable presence following the acquisition of Air California. Mm-hmm. And we had a hotel in San Jose as well. And we were developing one in Washington, D.C. And so, what's interesting about hotels is they are really sales-oriented businesses, sales and PR. And so when I got there, I really had a lot of work to do because I found out that the properties weren't really managing their budgets well. There was one property that spent the majority of its budget advertising Sunday brunch, literally. And no one was taking advantage of the loyalty program database. The loyalty program database itself was in tatters. So it was a lot of repair and rebuild and strengthen it. And one of the things I wanted to do was pitch Fairmont, which was mostly a convention and conference focused type of hotel brand, as the biggest boutique hotel, because we paid a lot of attention to the guest experience. And, these were luxury hotels, 4-star, 4-star plus hotels. The sheets were the softest I'd ever slept in. And you didn't, triple sheeted, meaning there was a sheet on top of the blanket. The food and beverage program, we prided ourselves on our restaurants and the bars and stuff like that. The people who worked there were some people who had worked at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco for decades. And it was really about making guests happy. So while airlines are very operationally focused about efficiency and processing us, hotels are really about serving the guest and focusing on guest satisfaction. And it was really eye-opening, and it was a lot of fun to be able to do this, especially for a brand that was small but very well respected in the hotel world at the time.
Okay, so many questions. The first,
Yeah, I know.
because I want to kind of bring this back to the mess that is aviation today. We'll just call it a mess. Okay, I'm asking the brand master here. Brand Master Flash.
Grandmaster Flash. Wow.
Give me, so in your opinion, and I think the context and the experience is really impactful here. But from kind of an all-in aviation perspective, who is handling kind of the branding, the all-in branding? What you kind of talked about is the all-in marketing. Who do you think is handling it best, and who would you point to as I don't want to say the worst, but kind of in progress.
Work in progress. Yeah.
Like, how do you think about these type of things?
Yeah, I think that if you look at Air France, Etihad, Qatar Airways, BA, British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Cathay Pacific, Qantas, EasyJet, Ryanair, AirAsia, those are airlines that get the brand right, and brand from the standpoint of what does it have to stand for, what does it mean, and making sure they bring it to life, and that it is executing against what they want it to execute. And you've got some names in there that have some true luxury products, Air France La Première, and some names in there that are, defined budget travel, Ryanair, for example. But they know what their brands are. They are truthful to them, and they make the investments in the areas that they need to. I think United is up and coming. And again, I give United a lot of credit for how they are using technology very, very well to create a good passenger experience.
When you say United's
I would have included Delta in that list a few years ago, but Delta has taken its eye off the ball in the wake of COVID. And I'm hoping that they will get their mojo back, because one thing I give Delta a lot of credit for, they took their name and took it from being the name of a company to being a lifestyle brand. And when you see non-av geeks wearing airline logo wear, in the early 2000s, it was JetBlue. In the 2010s, it was Delta. That takes a lot of effort for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to buy a T-shirt or a cap or whatever with an airline logo on it, if they have nothing to do with the airline or their family has nothing to do with it. Because they view it as a statement of who they are. What really disappoints me is to see where American is. I think their brand is as gray and
as the airplanes,
invisible as their, the gray on their airplanes.
Yeah. So United, I think to put this into context, we are, what, 7 years from United Breaks Guitars, right? Like, they were...
No, more than that. More than that.
Was that right?
But, yeah. I was still at Forrester Research, I think, when United Breaks Guitars happens. But your point is a good one, Courtney. You know, there was United Breaks Guitars. There was the infamous Dr. Dow incident. But if you look at United today, you see what, you know, an airline where there is leadership and where you got people who are empowered to do what they need to do to serve customers well. And United has improved their on-time reliability a great deal. They are making investments in aircraft, in the passenger experience, and things like that. You know, they will never be a luxury airline, but they're not holding themselves out to be a luxury airline. But I give United an awful lot of credit for the opportunities they have seen and are taking advantage of to improve. And you look at their route network, it is a thing of beauty. We record this just a few days before United launches the new flights from San Francisco to Christchurch, New Zealand. You know, they're going to be flying from Newark to Faro, Portugal this summer. That is not a route I had on my bingo card. But United is taking advantage of its fleet and its hubs to build the greatest product they can. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, the network is the product. You can talk about legroom or, you know, size of the entertainment screens or whatever else. But if the airline doesn't go from the A to B that you want it to go, none of that other stuff matters.
Okay, what about now this has been a long a long time coming with Spirit in particular, and Spirit obviously is in the news for merger issues, the challenges financially that they've had in the last quarter. But I'm most interested in their branding, and I'm thinking of the days, you know, when Ben Baldanza was running the airline, where they kind of had this take of, you know, no PR is bad PR, like no news is bad news as long as you're in the media. Did it ever work? And does it still? If so, does it still?
So some of the things that Spirit did at the time, I think, worked. For one thing, I want to be, you know, I am not the Spirit Airlines customer, though I have flown it. But I respect Spirit for what they are. They are brutally honest with people in terms of what you are going to get and how to, you know, frankly, have a better trip on Spirit. They give people options. You know, they have seats that have more legroom. They have big front seats, all of that. They give you the ability to pay in advance for certain things and save money and so on. You know, some of the sophomoric humor that they were using in the early 2000s, or earlier in the 2000s, I should say, was okay. It was borderline, you know, certainly on the borderline of good taste and bad taste, but it got people talking about Spirit. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, Ryanair was doing the same cheeky kind of stuff in Europe and had been for longer, but Americans are not Brits and Brits are not Americans, and what Ryanair can get away doing and what Spirit can get away are not always the same thing. Where I really was unhappy with Ben's leadership of Spirit was when there were some real serious, very legitimate passenger complaints, and there are emails that came to light that where Ben said, you know, we can get anyone to fly us for, you know, $69 or whatever it was. And the last person I heard who said that was Frank Lorenzo when we were in the throes of our problems at Continental. And Ben was, I don't think, at Continental at the time. But that is just not the right attitude to have. Whether someone is paying you $29 or $2,900, that is still a person who is paying you money for your product, for your service, and deserves to be treated as a person. And if something goes wrong, and it is in the airline's responsibility, the airline needs to take ownership for it and work with the customer to resolve the problem within the boundaries of what that airline is. I look at Spirit now, and they are much more reliable. They're putting Wi-Fi on the planes and so on. And I have to tell you, with the network airlines reducing what they do on board, especially in North American flights, and going to a pay for everything a la carte model, there's not that much difference left between some network airlines and some of the LCCs or ULCCs. When your point of differentiation of an airline is we give you a full-size meal tray, but we don't give you a meal to put on it, by the way, that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
it really is. Now, when you're saying, hey, our seats recline and theirs don't, okay, that's kind of a tenuous marketing claim to make.
I've heard more comments from passengers in that they prefer the non-reclining seats because it means the person in front of them won't be in their face.
I've heard that as well, and
it's give and take.
Having just been on an airline, where someone did recline his seat, and it was in my face. It was not the most pleasant experience, but that passenger has the right to do that. Mm-hmm. I was not working, so it was less critical. It was a weekend day when I was traveling, so it was less critical. But had I needed to use my laptop to do work, it would have been a really uncomfortable experience.
Yeah, and might I point out that the airlines, and this is really on the BFE side, Garrick, the seat build and the seat OEMs, they've done a great job of ensuring that the distance from the table to the little nook that reclines from the seat is exactly the height of a computer screen so that it smashes and cracks it. Just perfect.
I have been on a flight when that happened. It is an awful experience.
Yeah.
The worst. I mean, look, airline travel would be fantastic if it weren't for those pesky passengers.
Look, airline, here's the interesting thing. I've done research throughout my career. And you ask people, what do you want? And, they want steak dinners and they want free champagne and so on. And then you ask people, what do they want to pay? And they tell you 79 cents to fly from, Des Moines to Dubai. So, let's have a reality check. And what's really interesting is you look at the evolution of this industry, especially in the past 20 or so years, when airlines have tried more legroom throughout coach, more and better meals, in-flight entertainment, blah, blah, blah. And what happens? All it takes is another airline to say, hey, we charge less, which is especially easy to find now, thanks to all the online price comparison tools. And, customers flock to the lowest fare. So this is where brand and product and marketing and reputation are probably more important now than they were when I began my career. Because if your airline doesn't stand for something in the customer's mind when they're price shopping, and that's what 85% of passengers do, flight to flight, only 15% of U.S. passengers have any semblance of brand loyalty, and it's single digits, it's around 3 or 4% who I would call blindly loyal to an airline or alliance, then the majority of people are making airline decisions, purchase decisions, flight to flight. And if your airline doesn't stand for something, it stands for nothing. And that's where you are at risk for being shopped on base for price and only price. So this is why I've given Delta so much credit, because they said not only do they stand for something, but they are worth more than some of the other airlines out there, even amongst their key competitors, and they have been very successful in attracting people to them and getting people to pay for that. Not sure it will continue to the same extent, especially as United gets better. But we'll see.
But Tom Brady's around, so
yeah.
What a stupid decision.
It's been great fodder. Like just the jokes abound.
I am not a football person. Courtney, you know this about me, but I'm not a U.S. football person. And so when Delta announced this, to me, especially considering 3 years ago, they were out begging the government for bailouts.
Uh-huh.
It is, their shareholders should be furious. Their investors should be furious. It's rumored that this contract is a 9-figure deal. Yeah, 100 million.
Wow. You're not counting.
Yeah, wow.
We're not including the decimal, the cents, I guess.
No.
Wow.
At that point, you don't need to, Courtney. But if you'd like to,
maybe I should just go to the NFL.
Figure. What?
Yeah, maybe I should just go to the NFL and then get 9-figure airline contracts.
Yeah.
Maybe you should. Yeah, there you go.
When Delta does that, announces that, and then, a short time later, they are laying off management people. There is, it is rumored that they are looking to cut their operating expenses by $1 billion or more for 2024. They don't have many new aircraft on order. They are flying 767-300s that, are 30 or so years old, 25 to 30 years old. Yeah, I mean, come on. There are much better, much more effective ways for Delta to invest its money than with a retired football star who is the butt of jokes. And for an airline like Delta, who is also very committed to DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion, to hire this white guy? Really? You want to hire an athlete? There are far better athletes, female athletes, athletes of color, who, probably would be more effective in doing whatever it is Delta wants to do. I think this is just a stupid waste of money. It's embarrassing, and it's just an insult to Delta's employees, shareholders, and customers.
Why would anybody remain a platinum member of this airline? What? Like, I hear they won't even send you to Atlanta.
So it's my turn to ask a question, I think. That's what that means. And it's going to be actually a good question, not a question about, stupid things like why I'm still a Delta customer. So I feel like, certainly as a consumer of, the travel industry, right? I feel like the customer experience that everybody kind of talks about has kind of gone to the wayside a little bit with a lot of big brands, right? And I don't know if that was based on, I think COVID probably threw everybody for a loop, because all of a sudden everybody was very focused on their credit cards to be able to keep brand awareness, to kind of go, hey, look, use our credit cards. We're going to keep your status and just, do what you can. And then when we're ready to travel again, like hopefully you'll remember us because of that. But I think it kind of backfired a little bit, because then everybody had all these different points and all these different things that they wanted to use kind of right away, or they wanted to, so that it just kind of messed things up a little bit, that, and I feel like a lot of the brands all this and kind of went, well, everybody's got all these points, so why don't we make things more expensive? So you're going to have to use more points, so you don't get as much benefit. So I feel like over the last couple of years, rather than strengthen the brands by kind of rewarding the frequent travelers, ultimately, like the consumers have lost out a little bit, because, when you go to certain places, the consumer experience just is not great, right? And so I guess my question from that is, do you see that changing going forward, just based on the fact that people are so price driven? Something's got to change to be able to attract people again, right?
Right. Look, when you have 4 big airlines in the U.S. that control approximately 80% or more of domestic capacity, you don't have to compete on product and amenities and so-called soft side of the airline as much as you once did. Virgin America was the first airline to go to a revenue-based loyalty program. Other airlines quickly followed. And you're right, Garrick, in COVID, certainly COVID was very disruptive in many ways for not just airlines, but all of us. But the credit cards that people had, we could spend and we could earn these points and, to redeem later. But, what Delta realized even before COVID, more so than some of the others, is that the credit card was this great gateway. And that is in part because of its partnership with American Express, because Amex controls that data. And so objectively, going with a bank that uses a Visa or MasterCard is better because there's much greater merchant acceptance. But that bank or that you would partner with can only give you their little corner of the world, whereas Amex has all of the data and can, that's really what is so useful for Delta in their case. But these loyalty programs are no longer really about loyalty. They are, and not even about frequent flyer. They are about spending. And you look at American and what they did with Advantage, and American just won best loyalty program at the Business Traveler Magazine Awards. American has basically said, we don't care how you spend money with us, as long as you spend money with us. So whether it's through an American co-brand credit card, on American flights or one of its partners, through a shopping portal, etc., you can earn your Advantage miles, you can earn the loyalty points, you get your status. And something American shared with me on the record during a visit to their headquarters earlier this year is that one of their top elite members spends a significant jaw-dropping amount of money on his credit cards, never flies the airline, and redeems the miles to bring his kids home from college.
Wow. Yeah.
So the dynamic has changed. If you live in a fortress hub city or a city where one airline has much more than a critical mass of flights and capacity, you don't really have a choice. If you live in Dallas, Fort Worth, you better like flying American Airlines and Southwest, because those are the two airlines that have the most capacity. American, of course, at DFW, Southwest over at Love Field. If you live in Atlanta, a city that you somehow, Derek, have not visited, you really need to like Delta Airlines because, or to a lesser extent, Southwest, because you have to work hard to fly another airline. If you live in a spoke city, though, if you live in Portland, Maine, Des Moines, Iowa, Little Rock, Arkansas, Tucson, Arizona, you do have more choice, but it is, amongst this blob of homogenous sameness that the airlines have become. And I would challenge any of you that if I blindfolded you and put you on an airplane and asked you to tell me which airline, you probably couldn't. And that's really sad. Everything looks the same.
If you ding your flight attendant call button, they'll tell you which airline you're on.
It also depends on how quickly they respond and how they respond to you when you do clink, because if it's more like, what? What do you want? Oh, wait a minute. I know this one.
But Henry's absolutely right. And it's, I mean, look, but you also made just a phenomenal point, towards the beginning of this podcast, saying that this is in response to what people are willing to pay for. Now, I think it can be argued, whether or not they're making the appropriate changes in the appropriate places, and there's an ebb and a flow. But like you said, Delta, I think Delta gets a lot of heat today because they were so good, right? Yep. I mean, they were just so good, and the rise was so strong. But you do get, especially with the return, I'll call it the return, but the return of premium travel, this post-COVID premium travel. And maybe that's the context for the next question here. How has COVID changed how we travel? I don't mean why. There's a lot of talk about why we travel and will we work from home and all that. But I mean how we travel and how we choose how we're going to travel.
Yeah, I mean, look, I identified premium travel, premium leisure travelers when I was still working at Forrester. And I've had my own company now for 12 years. So this is 13, 14 years ago. We identified that there were a group of leisure travelers At the time, I was trying to find this. I think it was between 15% and 20% of travelers who said that they were willing to pay more for better service, pay more for more comfort, and pay more for ways to save time, have less hassle, etc. So the overlap, if you will, of the Venn diagram of that was like 15 to 20% of the leisure airline passenger market. It has grown since then. Courtney, I think what has changed with us is we want more flexibility. And because we do live in a world of a lot of uncertainty. It may be less concerned right now with health, thankfully. Unfortunately, there are a lot of other things out there that are uncertain. There are a lot of people wondering right now, will I be able to keep my job because of the state of the economy? Will I be able to continue to make my mortgage payments because of high interest rates, et cetera, et cetera? So there's a lot of uncertainty. We want that flexibility. And yes, if something goes wrong, regardless of the cause of why that is going wrong, people want flexibility. So I think that is the number one thing. There's been a lot of money sloshing around the economy, and there are others far smarter about this. COVID payments, other payments that have gone into people's bank accounts that we have used to fund travel. And airlines, wisely, I think, have said, oh, we can't have coach fares that are priced reasonably and premium cabin fares that are literally affordable only by the 1%. They now peg premium cabin fares to the operable selling fare in the main cabin. I think that's brilliant. So for some, at least, and obviously a considerable number of people, they are able to afford to just buy up to whatever the next best thing is, whether it's premium extra legroom seats, premium economy if that's available, first or business, whatever it is. Part of the culprit, by the way, and the reason air travel is so bad, are corporate travel managers and corporate travel programs and company CFOs, really company CFOs. Because company CFOs were saying, I don't want my people to spend more on a better flight. I don't care about that. I want them to travel as cheaply as possible because that is our responsibility to our shareholders. Well, when you are telling your employees, sorry, not only can you not go business class or premium economy, but I won't even let you take a reasonably priced nonstop. Instead, I'm going to make you take flights that are at inconvenient times and sometimes involving a connection. That doesn't help the situation at all. With COVID and the post-COVID wave, this premium leisure segment, premium is a vague term. It is subjective. If someone is paying to select a seat in advance, is that premium or not? Is premium a hard product type decision, or is premium the person who pays to upgrade to a higher boarding group to have a better chance of bringing their bags on the plane, or for an airport lounge pass? Premium is a little bit, squishy as a defining term.
And that a lot of those items that you just listed there too, I'm struck by, like, you're right. What is premium? And I'm kind of taking that one step further and kind of asking the question, how much has changed and how much value is there in adding extras as opposed to taking away things and offering them back what they had at an incremental price? So checked bags or boarding or, whatever.
Right. So look, I mean, we are, now 15 years into the unbundled a la carte model for at least North American economy product. And, so it is a reality. There's not much left for airlines to take away that's included, short of the so-called full service airlines going to basically saying everything in economy is a la carte, as US Airways did, and then when was it, in the 90s or early 2000s when they were charging for tea and water and coffee. But that's what the budget airlines do now. So there's really not much left for the airlines to take away. Pre-COVID, Delta was serving meals in economy on transcon flights. And I think maybe it did help them get more market share and command a higher coach fare. But they're not doing it now, and they don't seem to be suffering. What's interesting is I was talking with some airline executives at a conference, the World Aviation Festival in September. And an executive from Air France KLM said it took them years just to figure out how to get the technology to work to sell people a bundled fare that included the base airfare and an assigned seat. So we have taken everything apart, but we lack the technology infrastructure to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Now, does that mean that, is there an opportunity for an airline to say, you know what? We are going to go back and stand for more full service in all cabins, on all flights, in certain ways, whether it is through a fare product or just as a matter of doing business. I don't know. We could see. But if corporate travel managers and CFOs are telling them, we're not going to pay for that, that is what's going to make the decision ultimately. Yeah. It's not what we want as leisure passengers, even though leisure passengers are accounting for a larger and larger portion of the air travel market. It's still the corporate travel segment that is going to dictate a lot of what we experience as passengers.
Yeah.
And again, when you have 4 super large airlines that have basically decided they're going to do what they're going to do, we know this to be a fundamental truth of the U.S. airline business. They compete by not competing. Chicago and Denver are the only 2 cities that have hubs of 2 or more airlines at the same airport.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the end, right, as an airline, all that matters is that you pull up when somebody does a search for, I want to go from here to here, that they pull up on the screen, right? Because if you don't, it doesn't matter what your product includes, you're not there, right? So somebody has to scroll to find you, and that doesn't work.
Right. Now, look, Southwest has very successfully educated the public that they don't participate in these third-party agencies and shopping sites and so on. So we have to go to Southwest to book, and we're willing to do that, and they're very successful at it. But if airline one, can't tout that maybe it has more legroom, or it has in-seat video at every seat, or it has complimentary snacks, or whatever it is that is important to that airline to promote, then that is a disservice to that airline. And we, as consumers, we are doing more online shopping. One thing that COVID did, it accelerated online commerce engagement by a 2 to 3 year timeline. When you look at where people expected e-commerce to be versus where we were. And, if you go comparison shop items on Amazon, or if you go to Macy's.com or Walmart.com or whatever your favorite store is, and you're comparing 2 different items, you get information and you can make informed decisions. And it's more difficult for airlines to do that. There are efforts underway to improve that, especially through third-party shopping. But, we're just at the beginning stages of that. So it's harder for the traveler to make decisions based on anything but price and schedule, because there are limited opportunities, if any, that give the airline the ability to provide helpful, actionable, contextual information.
So here's a great example.
Yes, sir.
I hear wonderful things about the United app.
It's terrific.
And it's terrific. I am flying, actually, this is a poor example, but I'm flying to New York tomorrow. Notice I didn't say Newark or New Jersey. I'm flying to New York tomorrow. I say it's a bad example because United kind of is an option for that, but it's not really, right? So United has the best app, but it's never going to drive my decision-making process because I live in DFW, and United doesn't have a presence beyond, connections to hubs out of DFW. right? So you were talking about this earlier, just the segmentation of the large population centers, aside from Denver, aside from Chicago, which kind of has three if you throw in Midway, but still, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I was
the
thinking
two.
O'Hare, but you're right.
It just, somebody asked me like recently, did you see the new United commercial? No, no, I couldn't even go find it. I wouldn't even know where to find it. I'm sure Garrick. Well, you're in the New York area, so you see all sorts. But if you're in Chicago, you probably don't see many Delta commercials. The same idea applies, and really where I'm going is how much there are the battleground markets. I think New York will always be one. LA will always be one. Boston to a lesser extent. Miami anymore seems like it might potentially be one at some point. But outside of those battleground markets and the spokes that you're talking about, if you're in a hub market, you're kind of captive.
Absolutely. And look, airlines has spent years and billions of dollars to make you captive.
Yeah, right.
And there is a reason why DFW has as much service as it does, why Minneapolis has as much service as it does, why Charlotte has as much service as it does, why, Houston, Newark, etc. And far more than they justify, even some cities like Newark, because they are hubs. But the airlines also know that the more they build up their hubs, the less likely you're going to get other airlines adding anything other than flights to their hubs and maintaining an almost skeleton-like presence, right? Do what's necessary, not what's needed. So to your example, to go to New York from the DFW area, you've got three nonstop options: American and Delta out of DFW and Southwest out of Love. But if you're a United loyalist, you're going to fly to Newark. Now, the Continental Airlines marketing manager that will live forever in me is sitting there saying, well, Court, where in the New York area are you going? Are you going to Midtown? Are you going to Wall Street? Because if you are, Newark may actually be more convenient for you than either LaGuardia. Well, certainly LaGuardia is an option, so I doubt you'd be flying into JFK. But, if you're going to the Upper East Side, if you're going to the suburbs, then yeah, I would understand why you would prefer LaGuardia. And look, if you just want to go to an airport terminal that has water fountains, then yeah, LaGuardia is your choice.
Oh, but come on, it's a great water fountain.
It sings New York, New York.
It does. But so there is an answer to that, Henry, and it's a terrible answer. I'm going to give you the worst possible answer. So tomorrow, I am boarding an early morning flight at Dallas Love to LaGuardia. And Southwest has always been very good to me. I mean, not me personally, but thankfully the reliability has just been stellar for me. And I am headed to Penn Station from LaGuardia. Not exactly. So let's talk about the irrational passenger.
Court, you could fly into Newark and literally take the train into Penn.
Yeah, but my miles are on Southwest. See, you don't split your miles. Okay. That's the other thing.
All right, no. So there's the thing. Loyalty, in this case, Rapid Rewards, is the influencing factor. There's nothing wrong with that. You want that. When I was managing loyalty programs, I wanted people to do that. So I understand now why you are doing that. It is to earn the credits and protect your status that you may have, or earn status with Southwest. I get it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's interesting that there is a rationally better option for you, but you're choosing Southwest. Well, that's fine. You'll have a nice flight.
But if I'm truly being introspective on why I chose that, it's not the collection of the points, or I already have status. I'm A-list, right here, A-list baby for 2024.
Nice. Yeah.
What's your boarding?
My boarding number tomorrow, A 28. So I'm like in the bottom of A list, but whatever.
You don't
I'm in the
matter
first
enough
line.
to them to get A1 through 15?
I only have to stare at 27 behinds before I board that airplane.
You stare at whatever makes you happy, Courtney.
But if I'm truly introspective of my decision, and this is 100% the truth, I know exactly what to expect. I know the parking spot I'm probably going to park in. I know that I will find an overhead spot. I'll get my window seat. It'll be forward of the emergency exit. Don't necessarily know what row, but I don't care. If I chose to fly United, that's all back up in the air. And I don't want to deal with it.
And look, this is why it's called loyalty marketing.
Yeah, you're right.
And it certainly has an influence on our purchase decisions, and you just articulated why. And what I would argue with is that, at least in the airline business, loyalty programs keep us engaged with airlines in the same way that two people in a bad marriage stay together, because parting company is just too complex, expensive, or inconvenient. To your point, you know where you want to park at Love Field. You know what security will be like at that point, even if you have TSA pre-check. You know what the boarding process is. You know what the onboard experience is. You know all of that. It is a known entity, and familiarity works, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And as you said, the trade-offs are not necessarily rational trade-offs, but emotional trade-offs. Where would you be on the boarding priority? Would you get would you have to pay up to get a better boarding group? Would there be room in the bag? Would you get the seat you want? Blah, 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 blah.
Now, I flew American a couple months ago domestically. Obviously, I fly them internationally normally. Now, I used to be concierge key for years. I'm not anymore. And the fall from grace.
Am I allowed to look at you in the face, Courtney, if you're concierge key, or do I have to avert my gaze?
Just look kind of just slightly to the side. It's fine.
I already know to walk one step behind you.
See, you
That's
got
also
it.
because I don't want you staring at my behind.
So I'm flying American, and I'm very familiar with American. Knew where to park. The DFW airport's weird, right? Just in the security entrances. For this instance, I had to go, if you're familiar with the D concourse, there are 3 TSA entrances. I had to go to the middle TSA security checkpoint to get in line for the high gates TSA security entrance. It wrapped all the way around and actually was doubling back on itself. Nuts. Never experienced that before. But here I'm very familiar with the American process. No status. And the moment they called my boarding group and everybody rushed to the gate, I said, that's it. I'm out. I never want to do this again. I don't want to fight for a spot in line.
Let me teach you something about your hometown airport. The DFW airport app lets you monitor security wait times at the various terminals. So next time you do fly yourself flying through DFW, check the app and you'll find out which terminal has the shortest wait. I know you've got to park your car, but if that's not a concern, if you're not doing short-term terminal parking and you've got some flexibility, the app can be very helpful. But yeah, I hear what you say, Court, about American. Let's not throw American under the bus or I guess airplane.
Oh yeah,
that's the same for any airline that uses the similar model. And what I actually said in an interview with Canadian broadcasting company, which is kind of taken off there, airlines really screwed the pooch by charging for checked luggage. They should have charged us to bring carry-on bags on the plane for the convenience and control that represents, and left checked bags free. And if I were at an airline, that's certainly one of the things I would look at changing. I think that rethinking certain things needs to be done, because think of the added time that airlines have to add now for boarding and disembarking because of the overhead bins, the expense for larger bins, all of this stuff. if they would encourage people to check their bags, it might lead to more, faster boarding, greater on-time performance, less tension on the plane, fewer fights, less frustration, all of that.
Do you think that we will? You touched on a little bit in terms of the airline's inability to, I guess, to be able to show how they differentiate their products, right? How to do a better job showing that. Do you think that we'll ever see that where, as consumers go on to book travel, the obviously if you have, let's say, if you're looking for the lowest price, have the I guess give the airline the ability to say, hey, look, we know that we're charging more, but these are all the other things that you're getting because we're charging you more.
Airlines desperately want that, and they are working on something, Garrett. There is this initiative, not to get in the weeds, but IATA, the International Air Transport Association, has for years been working on something called the New Distribution Capability, or Capabilities, NDC. And that is being implemented. And in theory, what it will do is allow an airline to display its flights and offers on third-party sites in a more retail-like manner. So if you were doing a flight comparison, you would see, airline one, the price, and what's included. And maybe it would just say, this just gets you, the seat and the seat belt, not flexible, no refunds, blah, 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 blah. Airline 2 has a slightly more expensive price, but it says, well, this is flexible and here's what else, and it includes an assigned seat or something, whatever. Airline 3, maybe it's the same thing as one of those two, maybe it's something different. But there is contextual information available in theory, and possibly the ability to say, you know what, it's not even showing you the price. Garrett, you're searching for one thing, Courtney's searching for something. Maybe you're both shopping at the same time. But Court has A-list status, as he will tell you endlessly, on Southwest Airlines. And so there you go.
I think it's A minus list.
Yeah, there's a plus,
by the way.
Courtney, who I'm surprised hasn't changed his name to put an A in his name, an AY, since he is A-list on Southwest.
Courtney.
Courtney. So Courtney with the A-list status, would say, okay, Court, as an A-list member, you get this and this and this. And Garrick, here, we've got an offer for you, which is, this type of flexible fare and so on. But it's personalized, more personalized to you. Yeah. Maybe they would give you an opportunity to buy, the automated check-in or something else that you would value. Again, there are all sorts of things that exist in terms of the potential. And I actually think that if airlines execute on this as they want to, and as they are working towards, it could be much better for the consumer, because we use price absent anything else meaningful to make a comparison.
Right. Yeah.
But if we see offers from an airline, and the airline one is saying, this includes a seat with 31 inches of legroom and an in-seat screen and free Wi-Fi and complimentary snacks. And another airline is like, we give this to you and we have the best on-time performance, but we have only 30-inch legroom, but we also do have complimentary snacks. And you could say, well, okay, and Wi-Fi is $8 or whatever, $10. Then you can say, well, okay, airline 1 charges X more than airline 2, but there are things in there that are worth it to me to pay the premium. Or you can say, they're not worth it, but airline 2 is going to give me what I need, and I don't mind paying whatever it is for the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I mean, you would think, especially in the current environment, right, there'd be a much better way to filter the type of product. Because I know, like, from my own personal, like, if I were to go on, I know, these are the things that I'm willing to pay for, because these are the things that I'm looking for. Whether it be, okay, I'm just, looking for airlines that have a premium economy product, or I'm looking for, these types of things that are important to me. And that way, you click on those and it tells you these airlines offer that product. Right. And these are the ones you can compare.
Right. And that, in theory, is what the industry is working towards.
Yeah.
but it's going to still take several more years for all of that to be put in place. It's at the beginning stages. It's live. It's not with every airline, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I do want to finish up, but before we do, I really want to hear about atmosphere research and the work that you're doing there, and just how people can reach out to you and get in touch.
Sure. So Atmosphere Research is a strategic marketing research company. We do consumer marketing research, surveys, focus groups, things like that. We also do business to business market research. We do meeting facilitation. Some people have me speak or moderate at conferences or their events and so on. As an industry analyst, and I emphasize industry, I'm not the equity analyst like, say, Jamie Baker or Helene Becker. I'm looking at industry performance. And so if you're trying to figure out, if you work at an airline or if you work at an ad agency or if you work for an investor group and you're trying to figure out, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like? What will matter to consumers? What's going to happen with tech? What's going to happen on the commercial side? Those are the areas that we look at and where we could potentially help you.
Fantastic.
We didn't even get a chance to get into Alaska, Hawaiian, so we'll have to do this again.
Well, I have been issued the challenge of figuring out what is a shared cocktail that blends Alaska and Hawaiian.
Oh, you just put ice in anything
for the Friday night cocktail that I do.
Okay,
that's right. The Friday
that's
night
right.
Abdi cocktail in the vintage airline glass. So that's something I'm wasting brain cells on. I shouldn't say wasting.
Say wasting. The drinking probably wastes a few of them, but probably not
That's
much
true.
about it. I think
Could be like
shape.
a baked Alaska something.
I know.
I'm trying to.
just ice in your Mai Tai.
Really, it's
Mai Tai, baked Alaska Mai Tai or something.
How do you blend Seattle and Honolulu? I don't know. I'm not sure. Because there's
coffee Mai Tai.
Oh.
Actually,
Or a fish Mai Tai.
The fish. Yeah, that's
Don't
right.
do that.
I don't think so.
With the sardine. No, that's not. No. Yeah. Or no, salmon. That's right.
No,
salmon bacon.
Aircraft and not catering.
Henry, thank you so much for
A-list Southwest person.
Yeah. Well,
A minus list.
But I will say though, as part of my A-list status, I have enjoyed A-list status in Atlanta. So
yeah,
that's
good. Good for you. Good for you. And on that note, Henry, this has actually been fantastic. We really it's tremendous. Your experience and what you have to share with us. It's definitely we could have gone on. I had another half a dozen questions that I wanted to ask, but Courtney doesn't let me talk. So we'll have to do this again another time. But that's all right. I'm used to it by now. But this has been really, really fun. So thank you for taking the time and for sharing your views on kind of what's going on today.
Well, thank you, Garrick, and thank you, Courtney.
Courtney List.
Mr. A-List.
You're always welcome. Love your insights and thoughts, and just can't wait to do it again. Thank you.
Well, I've enjoyed it, and thank you, and I hope that your podcast listeners enjoy it as well.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's okay. You obviously have better things to do than talk to me today. That's all right.
I do.
You have to be so quick about it. Every once in a while I go back and I just kind of go through and just go to the end and listen to all the outtakes, just when I need a good laugh.
Little pick you up.